there's some, like, even going back to Roswell, right? Like in 1947 when that thing crashed, like we still don't even know what happened with that, right? There's still like so much speculation on what happened. There's like, there's a handful of different theories of what happened, and no one can agree on anything except for the fact that it probably wasn't a weather balloon, right? There was allegedly there was the guy who wrote the book on Roswell, Day After Roswell. He explained.
Is that Corso's book?
Yes, yeah. That's Corso's book. He explained there being Kevlar and Velcro in this crash, like clearly man-made technology that was found. That no one ever talks about that. Like if this was some sort of interstellar craft, why were they using Velcro and Kevlar? Yeah.
Well, I thought he had mentioned he was claiming that they developed Kevlar from what was found in the craft, but I didn't know about the Velcro part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read his book, so I don't know those details. I'd seen an interview with him. But.
Right.
Yeah, no, that whole thing is a real mess because you've got the U.S. government coming out with multiple statements throughout the years, changing the story every time. Right. Mm-hmm. And, one of my favorite ones from the early 1990s was an Air Force statement that said they were testing a Mars lander and the disk was the back shell of the lander. Well, who's testing a Mars lander in 1947 10 years before Sputnik?
Right.
That's a ridiculous thing to even say. Doesn't make any sense. And so clearly a lie, right? Mm-hmm. And then after that, came out, they came up with Project Mogul, but Project Mogul is a weather balloon problem. What they were trying to do with Project Mogul is they wanted to put radio wave detectors up so that they could detect the electromagnetic radiation from nuclear explosions from Soviet bomb testing, right? So, but the problem is you wanted to hold these balloons at something like 50,000 feet. The problem with balloons is you let the thing go up and the balloon goes up and up and up. And as the balloon goes up, the air pressure outside goes down. So the balloon gets bigger and expands and eventually breaks and the thing falls. Mm-hmm. So Project Mogul was about trying to figure out how to maintain a certain altitude for a balloon. And so they were releasing test balloons, right? They're trying to be up at 50,000 feet. Mm-hmm. And then the claim is that the balloon that was launched in early June, the balloon that was launched in early June was the one that crashed on Mac Brazel's farm or ranch in Roswell, near Roswell, New Mexico. But the problem is that when you look at the records of the New York University professor who was running Project Mogul, they didn't launch a balloon in June. They couldn't launch. The weather was bad, so they didn't launch. Yeah, so there was no balloon up. And had they done it, it would have been an illegal thing to do because the conditions weren't right to be able to monitor the position of the balloon. It wouldn't have been a good experiment anyway. Right. So they didn't even have a balloon up. We have those records. So we know it wasn't Project Mogul. But Kirkpatrick in Arrow comes out with his report and says again it's Project Mogul, which we know it's not. So we know the government has been changing the story every time and lying every time. So what actually happened is a good question. I mean, what was so serious that when the Army found that the sheriff of in the area went to the ranch to look at the debris himself, they found that out and they detained him and his family for 5 days. What warrants that? Mm-hmm. A radio balloon experiment? Really?
Yeah.
That's hard to believe.
This is the paradox of trying to rely on the government to give us any sort of confirmation about any of this stuff.
Exactly.
Right? This is the paradox of it because, they have been clearly trying to deceive and, muddy up the waters of this topic forever.
Yeah.
So trying to rely on them is something that's, it's futile, it feels like. It's just like...
I think it's a waste of time.
I think so too.
Plus there are other governments on the planet, other governments who actually know things. Yeah. So let's work with them. Let's go down to talk to the Chileans. Maybe they'll talk. They've collected data. They've collected information. You know, I'd rather spend time with other governments than wasting time with this one.
But a lot of those governments are subservient to the U.S. government.
And that is a problem, yeah.
Yeah. I've heard stories that this whole topic, there's like zero stigma when it comes to this stuff in like Russia, for example. Like even like the government and the population, they're all into like esoteric UFOs, astrology, and all this stuff, and they're openly.
They go through waves like we do, and we talk about that Russia a little bit in our paper. We didn't have the French co-authors produced a lot of the material on the Russians. So we talked about that in the paper, and they'd gone through phases where they would start studying UFOs, and then somebody would say that's ridiculous, and they would shut it down, and then they would start up again and shut it down, kind of like what happens here. It goes up and down a good bit.
And who were the folks that you got the information from in Russia? Like, were there certain?
Oh, these were from documents from.
Oh, actual documents.
Actual documents, yeah. So we learned a little bit about what went on there, but a lot of it's not known. I mean, the Soviet Union was pretty tight-lipped about everything it did, so. Yeah. I don't think, like the U.S. government, you're never going to find out what the Russians knew. Right. It's a problem.
Right. Yeah, and then you know, there's lots of cases that happen in like South America where like even stuff that Jacques Vallée has written about that's like really frightening stuff. And I'm sure you're familiar with James Fox's documentary about Brazil.
In Brazil, yeah.
What was the name of the town in Brazil again?
It
was like the Roswell of Brazil, basically. But they explained that crash, and there was like multiple witnesses, and the next day the U.S. Air Force came down and landed there, and supposedly took these bodies away. That. You know, and they claimed it looked like it was like 2 arms, 2 legs. It looked like a demon, smelled like a demon. Smelled
I love the descriptions. Smelled like sulfur, and everybody thinks it's a demon. Yeah, so they're always great descriptions. Yeah, it's very funny.
That was Varginha.
That's right. That's what
Brazil.
It was. Yeah.
You know, and then the stories like that are the ones that like that just doesn't fit into any.
They're weird. Box. Yeah, they're weird. And then there's the explosion in Ubatuba in Brazil, where they saw a disc coming in. These fishermen saw a disc coming in that then pulls up. Looks like it's going to crash into the ocean. It pulls up just at the last minute and then just explodes and then left debris. And they collected debris, and that's been analyzed by multiple people by this point. And
has it?
Yeah, that's almost it's magnesium.
We have it. We can look at it.
Yeah, it exists.
And it's like civilians
I don't have it in my position, but
or is it like locked away in the government?
No, there are other researchers have it. I don't know. I know that Robert Powell from SCU has studied it and wrote a paper on it with Phyllis Budinger, who's a physical chemist who's worked on a lot of cases.
Is that kind of stuff's material? Is that kind of material something that would be able to be created on Earth?
It was very pure magnesium, which would have been very hard to purify back when it exploded, which I don't remember exactly what the date was.
But not impossible.
But not impossible, probably, yeah. But it would be very expensive and very hard. So it's hard to imagine that somebody made a craft of this and then it blew up. And that's one heck of a story still.
It is. Yeah. It is one heck of a story.